So here's an interesting thought. We've been talking a lot about digital. These are my digits. So surely my hand is digital. And when you think a bit like that, it's digital is of the hand, which kind of puts it all into a weird context. So next up we're going to hear from Selesti, who describe themselves as a digital marketing firm, so marketing of the hand. Now, I'm aware that Selesti is suffering a little bit from banner envy. Theirs is the white banner that's kind of dwarfed by the Naked Element Panavision surround sound spotlit screened stand. So after they've done their talk, if you could, after we're all over, go up and tell them how good their stand is, and not to worry, they would love that. But they now have 19 minutes to explain why actually they don't need a fancy stand.
Hello. You've gone from no hair to too much hair. We are Selesti, and this talk is about how an agile approach can really help your business and how Selesti can work with you to make your ambitions a success. We're not going to be talking about a particular project management style here. Instead, we've chosen 5 distinct topics that we feel really make a difference to the success of a project. So first up, a little bit about us. We are Selesti, a digital agency for brands with ambition. We're based on St Giles Street here in Norwich, literally above the car park. We have a range of services, including consultancy, working with our clients for research and auditing of new and existing projects and technology content and training. We also have a great deal of experience building for the web, including Magento e-commerce, WordPress marketing, and entirely bespoke applications to suit your needs. We also do a great deal of digital marketing, search engine optimization, paid search, social media, and content strategies. So moving on to a topic that quite a few of the others have touched on, or gone into quite a great deal of depth on, minimum viable product. This is the idea of getting to market quickly, prototyping, testing, and having the simplest possible solution to the problem before working on it. A new project is obviously a hefty investment and one that can carry a lot of risks. It's a sad fact that over 50% of projects fail before they are completed, wasting time, people, and resources. Traditionally, the response is to attempt to identify all the possible failure points ahead of time, locking down a specification and following a rigid plan. However, reality doesn't work this way, and soon the project can start heading off the rails again. This is what's known as Waterfall, each stage requiring the previous step to be completed. This rigidity is what causes the derailment, as you are unable to rearrange or bypass certain stages in order to continue the project. Agile moves away from this line of thinking, instead introducing the concept of minimum viable product, or MVP. The goal is to invest the minimum amount of resources to solve the problem and get a functioning result for your users or customers. This product should be introduced to market, whether this is for public consumption or internally within a company, for immediate testing as soon as possible. So when it comes to MVP, you develop it by identifying the key aspects of a project by a customer data-led approach. So what does this actually mean? It's about asking what the most fundamental expectations of the new project are, or what is the key problem to be solved. For example, if your goal is to sell products online, you need a catalog to browse, a checkout process, and a means of taking payment. While this is a little oversimplified, you can start to consider projects in these very basic terms. Stripped down to the bare essentials, you'll soon find that the resources required to achieve these goals are significantly less. As a result, you are able to get your product to market sooner, and once out there, you're able to collect further real-time customer data, adapting the project to suit the real issues that you come up against. You can refine the aspects that are working well, improving user engagement or optimizing your costs. And you can refactor the aspects that don't work. And as you've made a smaller investment into the project at this point, there is less of an attachment to functionality that is unwanted or you find becomes unsuitable in reality. So the use of minimum viable products is widely used in the tech industry, whereby you start with the most simple version as an early concept before committing the full resources. Airbnb's first iteration in 2008 looks nothing like the slick holiday let application we know today. The site was basic. You could add a listing, search for accommodation on a chosen date, and see a feed of new properties. Now, since then, there have been many updates. For example, the property feed would be overwhelmed by the volume of listings coming through today, especially as their brand is now a globally recognized one. But these interactions form the core of what we use Airbnb for to this day. And they got to market with a great idea and worked on improving the site as traction grew. Underneath the marketing and the global brand today, it still retains these key experiences. Eventbrite had an even more bare-bones approach. In 2006, their site looked more like something from the 1990s. But their model was simple, though. You register an account, you create an event, and they take a cut of the ticket sales. And today they've expanded, including ticket verifying applications, sales and marketing analytics, and conference management. So, as you can see from these examples, they both adopted a very, very simple first approach. And they got their products to market without the significant spend that they would have needed to, say, launch themselves as they are today. And these projects were only possible using this small-scale, iterative approach to grow. So, if we were to recap this section, because it is quite important to the whole concept, it's the minimum viable product, the smallest amount of development to solve the immediate problem. By cutting down on the number of features to get to market, allows you to get the edge of your competitors. It can be much harder to gain traction if a similar idea launches first, even if your execution is better and has a higher quality product. And Agile breaks the work down into iterations. With an MVP, you can begin to collect your real user feedback as soon as possible. This feedback can be used to direct future development and to reduce resources spent on unwanted functionality. This comes up in more detail later, but it is so important that decisions are made using real data. And this is the idea of refine what works and refactor what doesn't. And moving on to technology, using an MVP approach gives you much greater freedom to experiment with new technologies that come to market. There have been a number of big advancements over the last few years that have been previously high-end or research experiments are now available as easily purchasable products and services. Machine learning, artificial intelligence, large-scale infrastructure, and other exciting developments can now be easily integrated into web projects. Many of these complement an agile approach with flexible payment options, scalability, and rapid deployment. Here are some examples of these services. Cloudflare provides a protective layer that sits in front of your website. It can protect from large-scale attacks, optimize your site across the globe, and keep it fast from wherever your customers are browsing from. Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Services, AWS, provide infrastructure as a service. Typically, the old model would be you would purchase a server, configure it for your application, and when traffic becomes too high, you would then need to either put more memory in it or begin a costly server migration. Instead, Amazon and Microsoft provide a service that can scale up and down dynamically, you paying only for the usage, and they can scale pretty big. Parts of Apple's iCloud runs on Azure, while Netflix and the Met Office use Amazon. And Clarify is a machine learning platform that can analyze images and catalog them. You feed in images, and it learns and understands what's in them. And this could have a wide range of usage, such as automated moderation of user content, to providing accurate and relevant product suggestions to customers. So, if you take a flexible approach, you can adopt these disruptive new technologies as they come to market. As you build your MVP, you can start to roll these into the system, and if you find they don't work, you can remove them just as easily. Many use a subscription model, allowing you to just pay for what you want, and if you find that you do not like it or it does not work, you can cancel at the end of the month. And in periods of low activity on options that use scalable payment models, your running costs will reduce in your idle times, and as your project needs to scale, the cost will go up in a linear fashion. So we use this approach with our clients to great success. You often find being a successful company can increase the chances of being targeted of random attacks. Marathon Leisure, a customer of ours, they're a successful business-to-business supplier of marine equipment, and they found themselves on the receiving end of one of these attacks recently. Fortunately, Cloudflare was integrated as part of the new Magento site build early on in the process. So marine supply has been quite a niche industry, and being business to business, having a smaller customer base than you'd expect, we were quite surprised to see this very large spike and continued traffic early one morning a couple of weeks ago. We were also alerted rather loudly that the site was down and customers could not access it. We analysed the logs and we found that they were being randomly hit by a bot attack. Effectively, automated software is repeatedly sending traffic to a site to try and bring it down. Under normal circumstances, this would be a very tricky problem to solve. Identifying the source of where the traffic from can be quite difficult, and if it's a distributed attack with no central source, nearly impossible. However, Cloudflare had recently launched free unmetered attack mitigation, and at a flick of a switch, we were able to restore full site functionality within 15 minutes. The point here isn't to sell Cloudflare, but to demonstrate that powerful technology is available to any size business and can be utilized in a very short amount of time. Marathon Leisure were quite forward-thinking in taking these suggestions on board and adopting them into their website. If you take an agile approach, it will require you to define roles and responsibilities within your organization or project team. Considering the earlier scenario of a new project or website, you need to decide what stakeholders and tasks are required. The lines of communication between these people should be kept open, including those who may not be directly involved. For example, IT departments are often overlooked when starting new projects. They are often one of the causes very late on in the project why there are launch delays and other complications as they have not been consulted early on. This does require buy-in from your team, however, and requires a shift to being an adaptive workforce. If team members aren't willing to become responsible for their own task and communication, it will be quite a struggle. And the concept of ownership of a task is very important. I'm sure everyone here has experienced frustration of having to repeatedly phone utility companies as no one has taken the issue forward once the phone is hung up. Alongside defined roles and responsibilities, making sure that everyone communicates is another high priority. It can be easy to silo people into teams based on their discipline, but this shuts out the potential for collaboration. At Selesti, we deliberately involve digital marketing, design, account managers and developers at all stages of a project, as there are rarely items that do not require the attention of multiple people. What I do as a developer has a very direct impact on what digital marketing strategies are available, and therefore it's essential that we actually communicate with each other across the room. And this extends beyond office walls. You shouldn't be afraid to use third-party suppliers and integrate with them willingly as a partner and give them the resources to help you. And you should expect them to challenge you. It's their role and the sign of a good partner, rather than being a yes man and saying what you want to hear. Remember that you would have hired them for their skills, and ideally you'd want them to advise you on the best approach. Though admittedly, it's not always that simple. So it can begin to sound like implementing agile methodologies requires a ground-up rebuilding of all business processes. This is not the case. At the heart of agile are some very simple concepts. You make a change to a project, you measure the effect that that change has had, and you analyze the data you've collected, and you make decisions based on that. By starting to view processes in this format, you can start adopting the principles of agile slowly and in a way that is sustainable. This means you can begin to be informed on key decisions based on facts. It's important that you know your target market through metrics, insights, and analytics. If you are making assumptions on these, you are gambling with the success of a project. If you were to strike gold, would you know how to repeat the success? And by adopting short and focused iterations, it means that you're able to rapidly work out strategies that do and do not work. Instead of continuing to pay for unprofitable marketing, you can identify issues early, redistributing budgets to strategies that are making a difference, and using the data you've gathered from that to continue to take successful actions. This is at the heart of how Selesti does its own digital marketing. We analyze customer accounts and continuously improve the routes that are increasing engagement and discard anything that isn't making a difference. And being adaptive in these situations means you're able to capitalize on opportunities in real time. This approach has worked well for our client, the British Assessment Bureau. Repeated audits of their page search terms highlighted that the money was being wasted on unsuccessful terms. And as a result, they were able to save 50% on their media spend by discarding them, amounting to tens of thousands of pounds per month. Similarly, we iterated on different page designs and content to reach a wider audience. This improved the click-through rate dramatically over 6 months. And the last point that we've got to make is that a big part of what we do is to help clients understand where the bottlenecks are in their processes. It may be that underneath the busy e-commerce application, orders are still being processed manually using a spreadsheet. And these little issues evolve naturally over time. However, they can play havoc when your business needs to rapidly scale. Are there processes out there that you find, if your business were to double overnight, would you be spending late nights in the office trying to sort it? And these pain points are where technical solutions can make a huge improvement to the everyday running of a business. And these issues can often be easier to solve than you would think. In most cases, the data is already there. The slow aspect is the human in the middle. Repetitive tasks are what machines are made for, and they should be used. The hard part is taking that step back, raising your head above the daily tasks, and looking objectively at the way these processes have evolved. Once they have been identified, you can start to build up a list of requirements, and soon you are looking at something familiar, the MVP to solve a problem. And this recently happened to one of our clients, King Edward VII in London, one of the leading private hospitals in the UK. Their ongoing objective as part of a new site development was to increase leads generated by their online presence. And the brief was based on 2 components, a marketing website built in WordPress to funnel leads, and a bespoke CRM system developed by us to manage it. We recommended the custom-build approach over an off-the-shelf solution, such as Salesforce, as this would save them time and money. As a result, the launch was a huge success, with a 200% increase in inquiries in the first week. However, this highlighted a weakness in their process, with these appointments and leads being managed through a spreadsheet. We were able to work quickly with them to iterate on the first version of the CRM, expanding leads management system to provide a full workflow for booking appointments and assigning consultants. And this may sound familiar from early points in this talk. We built them an MVP solution using new technologies available to us, and then use data to iterate on the system to meet the real needs of the organization. This is Agile, and that is what Agile can do for you. As we've got 2 minutes on the clock. So, a little bit more about Selesti. The reason we're able to sort of talk with such confidence about this is we have a superb team of very talented individuals. We have certified developers in Laravel, which is the underlying technology that powers the King Edward VII CRM. And we are one of 8 globally to be certified by Google for progressive web apps. We are a highly recommended agency as voted for by our clients. And alongside this, we're a Google Premier Partner, which is a testament to the size of the projects, budgets, and certification we need to achieve. So if you have any questions, I've got 1 minute 50 on the clock. If not, thank you for listening. Have a good night.